Hey guys, it's Emily. Welcome to Posy Lane. So today we're going to be making a wintry frozen themed calming jar. And I know I've made a couple of these before now, and when I made them, I made one that was like a galaxy jar, and then I made one for fall. And I wanted to make one that I could set out on my desk for winter. And so when I went to the store, I was looking for some really pretty glitter to add to it, and I saw this beautiful blue glitter, and it immediately made me think of Elsa and Frozen. So this is kind of like a Frozen themed calming jar. And when I call it a calming jar, it's kind of like a sensory calming jar. It's something that you could use while you're just sitting there and maybe trying to think about things, or you're fidgety, and it's just something to do with your hands while you're trying to focus on other things. And I thought of this idea because I was on Pinterest one day and I saw these really pretty sensory jars that people were making. But when I looked at what they put in it, it had oil and water. And I was thinking about, like, if I gave my child this jar, or if they got a hold of it, like what kind of mess would there be if there was like oil and water everywhere, or if it started to leak. And so I started to think of, like, how can I make something that would be soothing and calming but would not involve oil and water. And that's when I came up with the idea of dyeing rice and putting that in it. And I've also used dyed corn kernels. So that is what we're doing today. Again, we are using rice, and we're going to dye it, and we're going to add this really pretty glitter to it. And I can't wait to put it all together. To make the calming jar, we're going to first need to dye rice. And to dye rice, we have several different things that we're going to need. First, obviously, rice. And this is just like regular rice that you find at the grocery store. Nothing special to it. The other thing that you're going to need is a teaspoon measure and a cup measure. And then you're going to need the dye. And I use food coloring, and this assorted neon has a really bright, pretty blue. So that's the color we're using. And then we need something to mix it all in. And I like using a big baggie for it. And then something to dry it on. So I usually get a plate and paper towels to dry it on. For the actual jar and assembling that, we'll use that rice that we're gonna make, and then we'll use this to put it in. And this is a mason jar, and it's just a smooth front. I like that for this look, and I find these at Walmart in like a big pack of them, and I just buy them and use them for lots of different crafts. And the other thing that we need is glitter. And for the glitter, you want one that has like bigger pieces to it that's not too fine, because I noticed that when the glitter is really fine, it gets like staticky and sticks to the side. And I found this really pretty glitter just in the craft section at Walmart. And that's all you need to get started. The first thing that we need to do is dye the rice. And I forgot to mention that you need white distilled vinegar to dye it. It just helps it be more bright and vibrant. And you just find that at the grocery store. Then make sure that your baggie is open, so when you're starting to pour things in, it's already open for you. And pour 1 cup of white rice into a measuring cup. And it doesn't have to be perfect, or even just about 1 cup I've found is about the perfect amount to dye at a time. So I just do 1 cup batches whenever I'm dyeing rice. And you also need 1 teaspoon of the white distilled vinegar. And I think I mentioned this earlier, but it just helps the dye be more bright and vibrant, kind of like how when you add the white distilled vinegar to Easter eggs when you're dyeing them. So after you add that into the bag, you're going to add your food coloring. And I'm using in the neon colors, I'm using the blue. And the blue looks a little bit darker right now, but when you put it in and start to mix it around, it's actually brighter. And when I put it in, I usually do about 3 squirts of the blue. If you add more than that, you may get a little bit of a darker color, and if you add less, it may be a little bit lighter. So I just like doing about 3 good squirts in there. And then once you put it in there, you just want to start shaking it around and massaging it and moving it and working the dye into the rice. If you don't do this, the rice really could be an uneven color or splotchy, and we just really want to make sure that that dye is good and in there and a very even color, and that none of it ends up being white and none of it's splotchy. So just keep moving it around until you see that it's all even and where you want it to be. You can see the rice is evenly dyed now. And so I went on ahead and I got my plate and I poured it onto the plate. And I use a paper towel to kind of help absorb some of the dye so it won't dye my actual plate. And when I pour it out, I just patted it and made it into a single layer of the rice. And you want to do that because it will help the rice dry faster if it's not all piled up and it's in a single layer. And I found that when I do this, it usually only takes a couple hours to dry, but I usually leave it overnight and dye my rice ahead of time. I left the rice dry overnight, and when you do that, the rice kind of starts sticking to itself. So I just broke it up so that all the different grains are not sticking to each other and will be able to be poured into the jar really easily. And then once I did that, I put the rice into a sandwich baggie because I found that it's easier to pour from a sandwich baggie into the jar than from like this paper towel. It's just a lot less messy. So now it will be ready to pour into the jar, and I really love how bright the blue ended up drying. So with the jar, if you can see, the design is just really only says ball on the bottom. There's not like a harvest design like some of them. I like having that smooth front because it doesn't take away from the rice and the glitter that I'm adding to the jar. And when you add the rice to the jar, you need about a cup of the white rice, and I just measure that into a baggie because I found it's easier to pour from a baggie into the jar than, doing other methods. And when I add the rice, I like to alternate the colors using white rice and then blue rice and white rice, then blue rice, because it's easier once you want to shake it all up for it all to be incorporated if it's kind of not all being poured one color and then the other color, but alternating colors. And it kind of reminds me of like when you make sand art. If you've ever made sand art, yourself or with your kiddos, you add the different layers of the color. The only difference is we're going to shake this all up to make it all mixed together. And once you have all the layers that you like, you add the glitter. And so I just added a bunch of glitter because my view on glitter is the more shimmer and shine, the better. And then I put the lid on securely and just shook the whole thing up, letting the glitter get incorporated and all the rice mixing together so the different colors are really well mixed and there's not like a big patch of one color anywhere. And then I noticed there's still room on top, so I decided to add the rest of the rice. So I added a little bit more blue rice, and then I added a little bit more white rice. I also decided to add a little bit more glitter because, like I said, the more glitter, the better. And so once you add a ton of all those different things, you want to mix it up really well one last time. So I made sure that I put the lid on really well and just shook it up until all the colors were really well mixed and really well incorporated. And if you can see really close up, I love how like the glitter is really pretty and shiny and iridescent. And I also like that I did leave a little bit of room, so when you move it up and down, you can kind of hear this really pretty sound from the rice. I love how this jar came out. It is so pretty. And I don't know if it can come across on the camera, but this glitter has this really, really pretty shimmer to it that just kind of mesmerizes me. And you'll be looking at the different colors and all of a sudden you'll see some of that glitter just like iridescent, shiny, and so pretty. And I love this idea for doing it maybe for like a birthday party, or maybe doing this craft with kids because I think it's so easy to do, just pouring the different colors in. And it reminds me a lot of sand art, but this is a lot less messy than sand because this is granules of like rice or grains of rice instead of granules of sand. And so it's not as like messy as far as like cleanup. You're able to see it and there's not like little pieces of sand everywhere. And I like only having two colors because when you give kids less options, sometimes it just makes it easier to do the craft. Like they get overwhelmed when there's so many options of what they can do with it. So I'm really happy with how it turned out. And for me, I'm probably going to leave this on my desk to play with and just sit out because it looks really pretty and wintry, and it will be great for this winter season. Thank you guys so much for joining me this week. I had so much fun making this craft, and I can't wait for our next craft.